I wanted to preface this video to say sorry about my voice this week. I did pick up a sickness, but I still wanted to get this video out for you guys because I believe in consistency. Anyways, enjoy. I give up. Welcome back to Cayenne Pepper Commentary, and nothing makes sense anymore. Left is right, down is up, the Dolphins beat the Bills, and Sam Darnold is a good quarterback. Let's jump into our game recaps. At least there's some consistent things, the Broncos' defense being the only reason they're relevant, and the Raiders being terrible. I'm happy that they also brought back the trope of boring to watch Thursday night games. I found myself getting almost too excited to watch short week football over the last couple of weeks. There's genuinely so little to talk about in this game because it was just punt, touchdown in the first, more punts with an interception and a touchdown in the second, and you'll never guess what the third was. That's right, more punts. Also an interception and, a blocked punt, which leads to a field goal. The fourth quarter also got an interception of its own. What a snooze fest. How are the Broncos basically leading the AFC right now? The Sunday slate kicks off in Berlin with a thriller. This game was a back-and-forth battle the whole time, with the two teams trading blow for blow till the Colts' final drive in overtime. Jonathan Taylor is seriously trying to make a case for MVP, going for 244 yards on the ground and another 42 in the air, making 286 all-purpose yards, as well as running in 3 touchdowns, including the one to seal the game. Daniel Jones also has a solid performance, throwing for 255 and a touchdown, but he did throw an interception and fumble the ball 3 times. I was hoping last week against Pittsburgh was a fluke, but he struggled to hold on to the ball this week too. The Falcons were equally carried by their run game, but Penix didn't have near the game as Jones, only completing 12 passes for 177 yards. This game was honestly a lot closer than it should have been, but as of right now, Atlanta's in trouble. They don't have their first round pick and are currently just a game ahead of last place in the NFC South. This loss is fully to blame on the Browns' special teams. New York got a kick return and then immediately after forced a Browns punt, and the Jets took that back as well. In no universe should a team win when their quarterback was 6 for 11 with 54 yards. 54 yards! The only defense you could give is the Browns' offense wasn't great either, but they at least had multiple offensive touchdowns. The only ones to blame are the special teams because this is a 7-point win for almost any other team. Dylan Gabriel does need to step up a little bit behind center, missing on almost 50% of his passes, but the defense did their job. They got the ball back with an interception and held the Jets' offense to just 169 yards. I'm baffled. You see why the NFL is so confusing this year? Oh, Jacksonville. It was 29-10 at the start of the third quarter, a 19-point lead. This is the definition of a full team shutdown. We'll start with the offense. You ran 9 plays in the fourth quarter for a collective 1 yard. I will say all their points weren't earned with a punt return earlier in the game, so it wasn't like they were lighting it up the whole time, but only getting 1 yard all quarter is abysmal, especially the fumble to end it. Defensively, they had actually been playing well. Granted, they were playing Davis Mills, but well. They let Davis Mills pass for 93 yards in the fourth quarter with 2 passing touchdowns, as well as a 14-yard scramble to give Houston their first lead of the game with 30 seconds left. The amount of full team shutdowns this year has been absurd. I was saying at one point this was the best defense in the NFL. The offense was always bad, and I get that affects defensive play, but my God, Davis Mills? On to the next game. I think this game broke me. I get that I've talked about any given Sunday, and rivalries are a toss-up. I get that I talked about Buffalo's inconsistency last week. What was this game? Devon Achane torched this defense for 174 yards and 2 touchdowns, with Tua adding another 2 touchdowns and 173 yards through the air. It's not like this wasn't the Tua we're used to, though, with 2 interceptions, but the Buffalo offense just couldn't move the ball. The real killer was the quarterback run down 10, where Josh Allen basically gave Miami the ball. Buffalo played careless in the second half, and it ultimately led to their demise. I would normally say they get a chance to bounce back next week, but instead they're playing a bloodthirsty Tampa Bay team who's in desperate need of a win. Knowing how this season is going, they'll blow them out of the water. I just don't understand anymore. Finally, we get back to the good games. This was a good game where Tampa Bay definitely put up a fight, but just couldn't make it happen when it mattered. They were only down 5 for 3 of their possessions in the third and fourth quarter, with 2 of those being off New England turnovers, but they just couldn't get the ball into the end zone. I think the big difference maker in this one was Travion Henderson's 147 yards on the ground. Both quarterbacks had relatively clean and good days in the air. Baker just didn't have the same amount of help on the ground. Forced the offense to be more one-dimensional at the end of the game, which makes it harder to score as you drive downfield. Didn't help that the Patriots are currently undefeated on the road, making it all the more difficult for this Tampa Bay team to keep up. They do stay atop the NFC South, but I'm not sure how difficult or crazy of a feat that is. I'm not saying Brian Daboll should have been fired, but this is their third fourth quarter blown win of the season. I get they have injuries, and I understand the team isn't great, but if you're winning, you have to hold on to it. I am also very concerned for Jackson Dart's mental health. We talk about Tua's concussion problems all the time, but this is Dart's 4th time being evaluated this season. I think Chicago's comeback ability also needs to be talked about. They've played multiple games this season where they found themselves down late, and almost every time have ended up with the win. Caleb Williams may not be the best quarterback in the league, but when you need him, he's scrambling for a key first down, or in this case a touchdown, to give them the lead. I had Chicago getting 4 wins this season, and now they're tied for first in a heated NFC North. If only they could win divisional games. I think the story of this game was really just turnover trouble. The Ravens didn't have a great offensive day, but it definitely helped that 13 of their points came from Minnesota turnovers. I'm willing to let this loss slide from Minnesota, given that McCarthy is still a rookie, but with one of the best receiving corps in the league, he has got to step up. That offensive line is still a problem, though, like it was last year with Darnold, and the way this season is going, I'm starting to believe they made the wrong choice at QB. Baltimore struggled offensively too, with their only points until midway through the third coming from field goals, but they did stay clean and avoid turnovers. Derrick Henry and Lamar turned on at the right time to deliver them the win, leaving them just a game back from the Steelers in the AFC North. I think I cursed the Panthers. Every time I hint at them being even halfway decent, they go out and be the worst team in the league. Tyler Shuck has his best game as a starter as well, throwing for 282 yards and 2 touchdowns as the Saints hold off Carolina. Rico Dowdle is unable to use his magical powers, which is not good because Bryce Young is still incapable of having a major impact on any given game. They had a good first drive of the game, then just did nothing after it. Multiple turnovers and just genuinely not being able to move the ball against the New Orleans defense. There was one touchdown between the teams scored in the second half, and it came on the drive that the Saints got the ball from a Bryce Young interception. Not pretty from the Carolina offense, especially when they're within striking distance of the division. Did I not predict this last week? The backup quarterback comes in, has a good game against a bad defense, and then gets absolutely humiliated when he plays a real team. This is a lot closer of a game if just one of those fumbles doesn't happen. Heck, even if they don't go back for 6. It's not like Seattle even played great offensively. Sam Darnold had 3 turnovers, and they still managed to put up 40. Heck, Sam Darnold only threw the ball 12 times, and they put up 40. The Seahawks running game did look very good this week and was a major part of this dominant victory, but I think this win is all because of the defense and proof that Jacoby Brissett is just a filler for Kyler Murray. I understand if they move on from him by drafting a QB or picking someone up in free agency, but he'll be back before season's end. Washington didn't even play poorly in this game. Detroit was just better. Granted, having less than 100 rushing yards on almost 30 attempts when you have a backup QB does not help, but Marcus Mariota had one of his best games of the season. The Lions just had over 200 yards rushing, and Goff had 320 and 3 touchdowns through the air. Genuinely felt like the Commanders' defense wasn't playing, with the Lions scoring on every single drive they had. Dan Campbell's boys are back, and they were firing on all cylinders in this one. This loss doesn't necessarily put Washington out of the running. They're just 2 games back on the 7th seed in the playoffs, but as of right now, things are not looking good. They'll need a major turnaround in the second half of the season. And we're back to nothing making sense. How does one of the best teams in the league lose to an injured 49ers team at home, then go on the road and obliterate them? Matthew Stafford continues his MVP push, throwing in for another 4 touchdowns, making him 20-0 over the last 4 weeks with over 1,500 yards. San Fran, similarly to the Commanders, doesn't have a bad day, they just couldn't make anything happen on defense. Mac Jones torched this secondary for a majority of the day, minus the interception. They honestly just couldn't get Christian McCaffrey going. This was just a dominant offensive performance over a defense that couldn't keep up. The 49ers definitely aren't out of the playoff race yet, though. It just doesn't help playing in one of the hardest divisions in the league when you're missing half your players. My God, I didn't want to believe it. I fought to see it wasn't true, but the 9-8 stories, they're real. Aaron Rodgers looked abysmal, Tomlin ignored his succeeding run game, and worst of all, the Chargers looked amazing defensively. Their offense didn't win them this game. The 3 turnovers and a safety did all the legwork. Sure, Herbert and Vidal both had a touchdown apiece, but one of them was in fantastic field position because of an LA interception. This was the most exciting primetime game this week, and even then it was still such a bore because it was 3-5 until right before halftime. Chargers still managed to stay ahead of the Chiefs in the division despite some rocky games, but man, Pittsburgh is so concerning to watch. They may even win the division at 9-8, which is the craziest part. And for the second time this week in primetime, we got a 10-7 finish. This one was a lot better of a game though, and it actually felt like it was a good defensive play instead of just really bad offensive play like with the Raiders and Broncos. The first half was completely scoreless, with each team recording a fumble just before they entered the red zone. Philly breaks the tie coming out of the halftime break with a field goal, but then it goes back to a defensive chess match until midway through the fourth. Jalen Hurts breaks the no-touchdown streak with a 36-yard bomb to extend their lead to 10, which Green Bay matches with a touchdown of their own. Unfortunately, no more points are scored, and the Eagles walk out with a win. I think this is a big indicator of how Philadelphia just plays down to the competition. If you flip the outcomes of their one-score games, they'd just be 2-7, with the only games not changing both being from the Giants, funnily enough. Feels a little like Denver, where they're winning, just never in dominant fashion like some of the other top teams. I wanted to apologize for this video being a little lackluster this week. Picked up a sickness over the weekend, so I've been having to fight to get this video out. I went 9-5 in my predictions for Week 10, jumping me up to 93, 55, and 1, which I'm not too mad about. Once again, I wanted to bring up how over 97% of my views come from people who aren't subscribed, so if you like the content or you made it this far, give me a subscription. It does help out. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.